The first sound was not a baby crying, but a man's voice, sharp as broken glass, cutting through the noise of a busy county hospital on the west side of Chicago. "I'm not signing anything," he said. "That bastard is not my son. He doesn't deserve my last name." The words slid down the hallway and into room 312, where a young woman lay on a narrow bed with a newborn in her arms. Her name was Zola Ani. Her body still shook from 8 hours of labor. In her arms, her baby boy lay pressed against her chest. The door opened. The man who had shouted in the hallway stepped inside. His name was Kofi Dumont. He was Zola's husband. He wore a dark suit and a neat tie. His eyes were not. "You're late," Zola whispered. Kofi did not answer. He walked to the side of the bed and looked down at the baby's face. For one brief second, something soft flickered in his eyes. Then his jaw tightened. His shoulders stiffened. Later, Zola would call this moment the silent explosion inside. "What is this?" he asked. "This is your son, Kofi," Zola said. "Our son. His name is Keon." Before he could reply, another voice cut in, cold and clear. "That is not a Dumont." Kofi's mother, Mrs. Odette Dumont, walked into the room like she owned it. Her coat looked like it belonged on a magazine cover. Her perfume covered the smell of disinfectant. Her eyes were sharp and hard. Nala, Kofi's younger sister, stood near the door with her phone in her hand. Zola tried to sit up. Pain shot through her body, but she held Keon tighter. "Mrs. Dumont, please," she said. "Has your grandson?" Odette looked at the baby, then at Zola. "My grandson," she said slowly, "would not look like that." Zola felt heat rush to her face. "I've never been with anyone else," she said. "Never." Kofi stared at the baby like he was a stranger's child. "Do you think him stupid?" he asked. "He doesn't look like me. He doesn't look like you. You expect me to give my name to a mistake that isn't even mine?" Keon let out a small cry, as if the anger in the room burned his skin. Zola rocked him gently, her eyes filling with tears. "He is not a mistake," she said. "He is our son." "Do not raise your voice at my son," Odette snapped. "You should be thankful we even came." Zola turned her head, looking for help. The nurse who had been checking her chart slipped toward the door, eyes down, doing what many people do when trouble walks in. She tried to disappear. Kofi turned on the nurse. "I need to speak with the hospital administrator," he said. "I refuse to sign any birth certificate. I'm not putting my family name on a lie." The nurse nodded quickly and left. The room felt smaller. The lights seemed too bright. "How can you say that?" Zola asked. "Kofi, look at me. Look at him. Please." He finally looked at her, but not like a husband. His eyes were flat, as if he was staring at someone he barely knew. "What you did is unforgivable," he said. "You have no idea what you've started." "What I did?" Zola whispered. "What did I do?" Odette stepped closer to the bed, folding her arms. "You come from nothing, you find a rich man, you get pregnant, and you think you're safe," she said. "You don't even know who the father is, do you?" "Shut up," Zola snapped. Her whole body trembled. "You don't know anything about me." "Don't speak to my mother like that," Kofi shouted, slamming his hand against the wall. The sound made Keon jump and cry harder. "You have no place in this family." The door opened once more. A tall man with gray at his temples and tired eyes walked in. His white coat was wrinkled. His name was Dr. Amadi. He was the doctor who had delivered Keon. "Is everything okay in here?" he asked. Kofi pointed toward Zola. "No," he said. "This woman is trying to force a child on me that isn't mine. I want proof. I won't accept false paternity on any record." Dr. Amadi looked from Kofi to Zola, then down at the baby. For a moment, he just stood there, listening to Keon's thin cries and watching Zola's shaking hands. "Mr. Dumont," he said quietly, "I need to speak with you in private." "I have nothing to discuss," Kofi replied. "I know what I see. That child is not mine. I'm not interested in hearing anything else. We're leaving. Let her deal with her own problem." "Kofi, don't go," Zola begged. She tried to reach out, but pain pulled her back. Please don't walk away from us." Odette paused in the doorway and looked over her shoulder. "I hope you have a good story ready," she said. "One day that boy will ask you who his father is." Then they were gone. For a few seconds, the only sounds were Keon's cries and the steady beep of a monitor. Dr. Amadi stepped closer to the bed. "Zola," he said, lowering his voice, "you need to be strong. What I'm about to tell you is not easy to hear. She lifted her head. "What is it?" she asked. He took a slow breath. "Your baby has a rare genetic condition," he said. "We noticed it in his tests. It doesn't match Mr. Dumont, but it also doesn't fully match you." Zola stared at him. Her mind went blank. "I don't understand," she said. "If he's not Kophis and he's not, how can that be?" "We need more tests," he replied. "But right now, it looks like the father of this child is someone close to your husband. Very close." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire you cannot see yet. "They say the worst kind of pain isn't physical," the doctor went on quietly. "It's the kind that shatters you on the inside while everyone stares and judges." Zola pulled Keon closer. She thought the worst part of her story was over. She did not know this was only the beginning. If you want to know what Zola did next, stay with this story until the end. For more true family stories, like this video and subscribe to the channel. When the door of room 312 finally closed and the hallway grew quiet again, it felt like the whole world had left with Kofi and his family. The bright hospital light still burned above Zola's head, but inside she felt like someone had turned the lights off. She lay there, holding Keon against her chest, listening to his tiny breaths. Every few seconds, his small body shook with leftover cries. She kissed the top of his head and whispered, "I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere, even if everybody else does." The nurse came back an hour later with a plastic tray and a clipboard. The food was cold, and there were discharge papers on top. "Zola, honey," the nurse said softly, "we're short on beds. You can't stay much longer. Do you have someone who can come pick you up?" Zola shook her head. "No," she answered. "My mother passed. My friends live far. And my husband?" The nurse pressed her lips together and didn't ask about the husband. She had heard enough shouting that night. "You can stay until this afternoon," she said. "But after that, we really need the room." Zola nodded. She signed the papers with a hand that still shook. When the nurse left, she looked around the room that had held her worst pain and her greatest gift at the same time. By late afternoon, a hospital worker rolled her out in a wheelchair. Keon lay in her arms, wrapped in a thin blanket. The cold from outside sneaked through the cracked doors. Zola did not have a car. There was no one waiting. She stood slowly, thanked the worker, and walked out into the gray light of a Chicago winter with her newborn pressed to her chest. The wind on the west side cut through her clothes. She kept one arm around her baby and the other around her thin coat. She took the bus first, then the train, following a route she knew by heart, back to the part of the city that had made her, long before the Dumonts ever learned her name, Bronzeville. The streets there were worn but familiar. Old brick buildings, murals on the walls, corner stores with faded signs. The house she was going back to had once belonged to her mother. It had good bones and bad everything else. The roof leaked, the windows rattled. When Zola unlocked the front door, the smell of dust and old memories rushed out to greet her. She stepped inside and closed the door with her foot, rocking Keon as he began to fuss. "It's not much," she whispered to him, "but nobody here will call you a mistake." The living room held a sagging couch, a broken TV, and a small wooden table. In the corner stood a worn bookcase full of paperbacks. Zola's mother had loved to read, and she had passed that love to her daughter long before she passed from the sickness that took her lungs. Zola laid Keon on a folded blanket on the couch and checked the kitchen. The fridge hummed but felt almost empty. A half carton of milk, a jar with pickles, some rice in a plastic bag, nothing that looked like a full meal. She leaned her head against the fridge door and closed her eyes. For a moment, she let herself feel the full weight of it. No husband, no money, no help, a sick baby, and a house that felt like it might fall on them if the wind blew too hard. But there was one thing she still had: work. 2 days later, with stitches still pulling at her skin and dark circles under her eyes, Zola stood in front of a small office cleaning company. The sign out front was half burned out. Inside, a middle-aged woman with a name tag that read Sandra sat behind a desk, sorting keys. "I'm looking for work," Zola said. "Night shift, day shift, anything. I just had a baby, but I can carry him with me." "Hes quiet." Sandra looked up from the keys and studied her face. "This is a cleaning job," she said. "We mop floors, scrub bathrooms, take out trash. It's not easy work and there's no daycare here." "I used to work at a library," Zola answered. "I can work here too. I just need a chance." Sandra sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from too many bills and not enough staff. "We had a woman quit last week," she said. "Downtown office building, nights. You can bring the baby, but if he cries too much, I'll have to replace you. I can't lose the contract." "I understand," Zola said. "I'll take it." That night, she dressed Keon in his warmest onesie, wrapped him in 2 blankets, and tucked him into a cardboard box lined with a folded sheet. She placed the box in one corner of the empty lobby, where she could see him from every angle of the mop's path. The building downtown smelled like old coffee and plastic plants. The floors were hard and shiny. The glass doors reflected her tired face back at her like a stranger's. Zola filled the mop bucket, dipped the mop into the soapy water, and began to move. Each push of the mop sent a dull ache through her back and stomach. Every few minutes, she stopped to look at the box in the corner. Keon slept, his tiny chest rising and falling. Sometimes he made a small sound, like a sigh. "You're okay," she would whisper from across the room. "Mama's right here." At 2 in the morning, when the city outside had gone mostly quiet and the building felt like a big glass ghost, Zola leaned on the mop handle and stared out at the lights of downtown Chicago. They glittered in the distance, big and bright, like a life that was no longer hers. "You wanted the Dumont name," she said to herself. "Now all you have is Dumont trouble." She thought about the library where she used to work, the smell of old pages, the sound of kids laughing, the way her heart felt full when she helped someone find a book. That life felt 1,000,000 miles away. Now her world was a bucket, a mop, a cardboard box, and a baby who needed more than she could give. When her shift ended, the sky was bruised purple with the first light of dawn. She picked up the box gently, held it close like a treasure, and walked out into the cold again. Back in Bronzeville, the streets were just beginning to wake up. A bus rumbled by. A man with a worn coat pulled his cap down against the wind. Somewhere, a radio played an old soul song. Zola climbed the steps to her house, holding Keon tight. When she bent to pick up the mail that had been pushed through the slot, a single white envelope slid from the pile and fell to the floor. There was no name on it, no stamp, just her address written in a careful hand. She laid Keon down on the couch and opened the envelope. Inside was one piece of paper, no letterhead, no signature, only one sentence, written in black ink. "He wasn't the only one in that house who looked at you differently." The words hit her like the cold wind outside. She read them once, then again, then a third time. Her mind raced back through every hallway in the Dumont mansion, every dinner she had eaten there, every stare she had felt but tried to ignore. Zola sank down into the old chair by the window. Keon let out a soft sound in his sleep, as if calling her back from a dark edge. "I don't remember doing anything wrong," she whispered. "So why does it feel like something was done to me?" Outside, a siren wailed, then faded. Inside, the house was still. A draft sneaked in through a cracked window, making the thin curtain dance. Zola pulled the blanket up over Keon's tiny feet and folded the paper in half, then in half again. She did not throw it away. She placed it inside an old library book on the shelf, between pages full of words that had once comforted her. For the first time since leaving the hospital, she felt something new, something heavy and sharp, not just pain, suspicion. And suspicion, she would soon learn, was the first step toward truth. She did not know it yet, but her quiet life was over forever. The days after the hospital were slow and heavy. Zola woke up, fed Keon, tried to rest, then went out to clean offices at night. She rode the bus home while it was still dark. Her life felt like a tiny circle with no way out. One morning, while she was changing Keon on the old couch, she saw his fingers shaking. They were very small movements, like he was trying to hold on to something in the air. She thought he might just be cold, so she wrapped him in a blanket and pulled him close. But that night, at her cleaning job downtown, his breathing changed. The building was quiet. Zola had laid him in the cardboard box lined with a sheet, as she always did. When she came back from mopping the hallway, his chest was going up and down too fast. His face looked pale, and when she picked him up, his skin burned against her neck. "Hey, baby, slow down," she whispered. "Breathe with Mama. In, out, in, out." He let out a thin, tired cry that scared her more than any shout in the hospital ever had. The next day, his fever was still high. Zola wrapped him in her thickest blanket, put on her coat, and walked to the small clinic 4 blocks away. The waiting room had plastic chairs, old magazines, and a TV with the sound turned off. Every time Keon coughed, people looked at them and then looked away. A young doctor called her name. His badge said Dr. Lewis. He listened to Keon's chest, checked his eyes and muscles, and watched the way his hands trembled. His face grew serious. "What is it?" Zola asked. "What's wrong with my baby?" "There are some signs that worry me," he said. "The way he moves, the breathing, the shaking. It could be something with his cells, the way his body makes energy. We call it a possible mitochondrial disorder." The words sounded like they belonged in a science book, not in a room with her tiny son. "Is he going to die?" she asked. "I don't know," the doctor said. "Some children live with it a long time. Some do not. But I know this. We need more tests. Blood work, scans, genetic tests. The sooner we know what type, the better we can help him." "How much do those tests cost?" Zola whispered. He sighed. "If you go through the main hospital, it could be $5,000 or $6,000 to start. Maybe more." Zola stared at the floor. 5,000 might as well have been 5 million. "I don't have that kind of money," she said. "My husband cut off the insurance. He left us. Doctor." Lewis looked at her and then at Keon. "I'm sorry," he said. "We can give him medicine today to help with the fever and breathing, but for the full tests, you'll need help. Maybe legal aid, maybe a charity. You should not carry this alone." That night, Zola sat at the small kitchen table with the clinic bill in front of her. The light above her head was weak. Keon slept in the cardboard box by her feet. Every so often, he let out a small sound that pulled at her heart. She looked down at her left hand. The only nice thing she still owned was there, her wedding ring. She turned the ring around her finger. It had once stood for promises, a safe home, a strong name, a life far away from leaky roofs and empty fridges. Now it felt like a chain that tied her to the man who had walked out of the hospital room. In the morning, she slid it off. The skin under it was pale and soft. She walked to a tiny gold shop on the corner. The man behind the glass took the ring, weighed it, and named a price. It was not much, but it was enough. With the money, she bought diapers, formula, and a big bag of rice. On the way home, she passed by Mrs. Ketta's porch. The older woman sat in her usual chair, wrapped in a blanket, watching the street like it was a slow movie. "You look worn out, baby," Ketta said. "Bring that boy over here." Zola handed Keon to her. Ketta touched his forehead and frowned. "Hez too warm," she muttered. "You take him to a doctor?" "Yes," Zola said. "They say he needs big tests. They cost more than I will ever have." Ketta answered. "Doctors always know how to count other people's money." She looked Zola straight in the eye. "You ever been down to 47th and King? Little office with legal aid on the window?" Zola shook her head. "People go there when life gets mean in ways it shouldn't," Ketta said. "Bad landlords, bad bosses, bad husbands. You might want to take a walk down there." "I don't know how to talk to lawyers," Zola said softly. "You talk like you talk to me," Ketta said. "Let them worry about the big words." 2 days later, Zola wrapped Keon in a clean blanket, slipped a thin folder under her arm, and took the bus to 47th Street. The legal aid office sat between a hair braiding shop and a tax place. Faded white letters on the glass read, "Free and low-cost legal help." Inside, there were 3 chairs, a small desk, and a shelf full of flyers about child support, housing, and workers' rights. A woman stepped out from the back, holding a mug. She wore a simple blazer and flat shoes. Her hair was pulled into a bun. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. "Hi," she said. "I'm attorney Imani Grant. How can I help you?" "My name is Zola," Zola said, shifting Keon on her shoulder. "I think I need help with my son's father, and maybe with something worse." "Come on back," Imani said. "You can keep holding the baby. We've seen plenty." The back office was small and crowded with stacks of files. A plant sat in the corner, doing its best under a weak light. On the wall was a framed line of text. "Justice doesn't move unless someone pushes." Imani sat at her desk and opened a yellow pad. "Start wherever it makes sense," she said. "Don't worry if it's messy." So Zola talked. She told her about the library job in Bronzeville, about Kofi walking in looking like a movie star, about the quick romance and the mansion on the north side. She told her about his mother, Miss Odette, and her cold eyes. She told her about the night in the big house when she drank 1 glass of wine, felt strange, and could not remember going to bed. She told her about the birth, the way Kofi had called Keon a bastard, the way his family had walked out, and the words from the doctor about the baby's genes not fitting. She spoke about the shaking hands, the clinic bill, the ring she had sold, and the note that had slid under her door. "What note?" Imani asked. Zola slid the folded paper across the desk. "I found this on my floor," she said. "No name, no stamp." "He wasn't the only one in that house who looked at you differently," Imani read out loud. She frowned. "Someone wants you to know you are not crazy," she said. "I never said I was," Zola whispered. "No," Imani said. "But powerful people like to paint women like you as crazy. Poor, emotional, greedy. I've seen it too many times." She tapped her pen against the pad. "Okay, here's what we can do. First, you are married. That matters. Second, your husband denied your child and cut off care. Third, the hospital did some kind of genetic testing already. We ask for those records. Then we order our own DNA test from a lab that has nothing to do with the Dumonts. How does that help?" Zola asked. "We test you and Keon," Imani said. "If his genes show a pattern that matches someone else in Kofis' bloodline, that tells us where to look. It might be a brother, an uncle, or someone older. If what the doctor hinted is true, this is not just about child support. It could be about a crime." The word crime made the room feel smaller. Zola held Keon closer. "I never cheated," she said. "Not with anyone." "I believe you," Imani said. "The question is, who took what was yours when you couldn't fight back?" A week later, Zola sat in the same chair in the same office. Outside, the sky over Chicago was heavy and low. On the desk lay a white envelope with the name of the lab printed at the top. It looked simple and harmless. "Do you want me to read it?" Imani asked. Zola nodded. Her hands felt numb. Imani opened the envelope and read in silence. The clock on the wall ticked loud and slow. "First," she said, "this test says what we already guessed. Kofi is not the biological father. He is fully excluded." Zola's stomach twisted. Hearing it in clear print still hurt. "But there is more," Imani went on. "The markers in Keon's DNA match another man from the same family. Not a brother, an older generation. According to this, the most likely biological father of your son is Kofis' father." For a moment, the room tilted. Zola gripped the arms of the chair. Kofi's father. She saw him in her mind. Neat suit, quiet voice, cold eyes. Sterling Dumont, the man who smiled at her at dinner like she was a child. The man who stayed calm when others rushed. "So I married the son," Zola said slowly, "and had a child with the father." "You didn't choose that," Imani said. "He did. This paper is proof that something was done to you." Keon shifted in her arms and made a small noise. She looked down at him. He just looked like a baby who needed sleep and medicine. But now he also carried a piece of a man who had hurt more than one person. For the first time since the night in the mansion, Zola felt something sharp and straight inside her chest. Not shame, not confusion, anger. She reached for the lab report and folded it with steady hands. "I'm done asking what I did wrong," she said softly. "From now on, we ask what he did. And we make sure people hear the answer." Imani nodded. "Then this is where we start," she said, touching the folded paper. "With the truth on the page and your voice on record. The rest of his world will have to answer to that." The news from the lab followed Zola home like a shadow. She tucked the folded DNA report into an old photo album and hid it on the highest shelf. She was afraid to keep looking at the page. Kofi is not the father. His father is. Those lines would not leave. Every time Keon cried, her chest hurt. Every time he smiled in his sleep, she felt both hope and fear. One gray afternoon in Bronzeville, Zola sat at the small table with Mrs. Ketta. Keon lay in a laundry basket near the heater. "You look like you've been carrying bricks on your back," Ketta said. "Something new happen?" "I know who Keon's father is," Zola said. "It's Kofis' father, the man who runs everything." Ketta set her cup down slowly. "You sure?" "I saw it in black and white," Zola said. The lawyer explained it. "There's no mistake." "You gonna go up there?" Ketta asked. "To that big house on the North Shore?" "I think I have to," Zola answered. "I can't fight a ghost. I need to look his wife in the eye. She's lived with him for years. She knows something." The next morning, Zola dressed Keon in his warmest clothes. She put on her one good coat and tied a scarf around her hair. She slipped the folded report into her bag. Her hands shook, but her feet did not. The bus grew quieter the farther she got from the south side. When she stepped off near the Dumont estate, she saw wide lawns and big houses with perfect paint. The Dumont mansion sat behind a tall black gate, a stone wall wrapped around the land. Zola stood on the sidewalk, holding Keon close, looking up at the place she used to call home. She walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "Yes?" a voice crackled. "It's Zola," she said. "I need to speak to Mrs. Dumont. It's about the family." There was a pause. Then the gate buzzed and slid open. Walking up the driveway, Zola noticed how smooth the path was. No cracks, no weeds. The front door opened before she could knock. "Mrs." Odette stood there in a neat sweater and pearls. Her eyes went straight to Keon. "You have a lot of nerve coming here," Odette said. "What more do you want from us?" "5 minutes," Zola replied, her voice calm. "Alone." A woman sat in the corner of the front room, holding a teacup. She looked at Odette, then at Zola, then rose. "I'll give you two some space," the woman said softly. When they were alone, Odette set her teacup down on the glass table. "You have 3 minutes," she said. "I'm not here about Kofi," Zola said. "I'm here about Sterling." The name hung in the room like smoke. "What about my husband?" Odette asked. A little of the sharpness left her voice. Zola reached into her bag and pulled out the folded report. She laid it on the table and slid it across. The paper made a soft sound. "That paper says, 'Your husband is the biological father of my child,'" she said. "Not Kofi. Him." Odette's fingers hovered over the report but did not touch it. Her face went pale. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said. "You bring some paper from some cheap lab and expect me to believe it's from an independent lab." Zola cut in. "Your own doctor saw the first signs. Kofi knows something is wrong, and someone left me a note. Someone from this house." She took a breath and spoke the name that had been sitting in her chest like a stone. "Aaliyah." Odette's hand shook. The name hit her harder than the paper. "Where did you hear that name?" she whispered. "Your son Osei said it," Zola answered. "He told you what your husband did to Aaliyah was worse than whatever people were saying about me. You told him to be quiet. But truth doesn't die because someone says hush." Odette sank slowly onto the couch. For the first time since Zola had known her, she looked small. "Aaliyah worked here," she said at last. "She was young. She was kind to my boys." She laughed too loud. "What happened to her?" Zola asked. "One day she was gone," Odette said. "Sterling said she left. But before she left, I saw bruises. I saw her cry in the pantry. She shook when he walked into a room. I asked him what happened. He told me not to ask again. And you didn't," Zola said. Her voice was soft, but it cut anyway. "I was afraid," Odette whispered. "He told me if I spoke, he would take everything. The house, the boys, my life. He always means what he says." "So, you let him do it again," Zola answered. "To me. To my son." You looked away a second time. Tears filled Odette's eyes, but they did not move Zola. "You think I don't know what I did?" Odette asked. "I hear that girl's name every time this house goes quiet." "You hear her name," Zola said, "but she sits somewhere alone, and my son lies in a clinic bed with a sickness he got from your husband. Fear cost you your voice. It will not cost me mine." Odette covered her face with her hands. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to find Aaliyah," Zola said. "And then I'm going to make sure your husband's name is not something people say with respect anymore." When Zola told Imani about the visit, the lawyer nodded. "I thought there was someone else before you," she said. "Men like that don't start with their daughter-in-law." They sat side by side in front of a computer in the small office, searching records and hospital lists. Most of the results were wrong, old, or empty. Then they found it. A patient named Aaliyah Dominguez at a private psychiatric facility across the state line. The file said unspecified psychosis and long-term stay. "She's not missing," Zola said. "She's locked away." "That's one way to make a witness disappear," Imani replied. "You don't hide her. You call her crazy and let the world forget." The next day, they drove out of the city in Imani's old car. Keon stayed with Mrs. Ketta, who kissed his forehead and promised to watch him. The facility sat on a hill behind a tall fence, with cameras on each corner. It was painted white, but not a peaceful white. It was the white of long halls and doors that only opened from one side. "You wait here," Imani said when they parked. They're more likely to let me in alone than if I show up with a mother ready to fight. I'm not angry, Zola said. I'm focused. I know, Imani said. That's what scares them. Zola stayed in the car and watched nurses and patients move around the yard. Some walked in slow circles. Some stared at nothing. An hour later, Imani came back. Her face looked harder. She's in there, she said. She doesn't talk much. They keep her on heavy medicine. But when I said Sterling's name, she flinched like someone hit her. Can we get her out? Zola asked. Not yet, Imani said. We need more than a flinch. We need records. We need someone inside willing to talk. But now we know she's alive. That matters. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the car tick in the cold air. On the way back to Chicago, Imani's phone buzzed. A message popped up from an unknown number. It had one attachment, an audio file. Imani put the phone on speaker. The recording was rough, with static. A woman's voice filled the car. She sounded terrified. He drugged me, the voice cried. I didn't want to. I couldn't move. Please, somebody help me. Zola pressed her hand to her mouth. The car felt smaller. Is that Aaliyah? She asked. I don't know yet, Imani said. The number came from someone who used to work at that clinic. I'll trace it. But whoever it is, they wanted us to hear this. The audio ended with a hard sob and a click. The phone screen went dark. The road ahead was long and straight. City lights were still far away. Zola stared through the windshield, her heart pounding. Somewhere between the words and the crying, something in the voice felt too close, like a sound she had heard before in a house on a night she could not fully remember. The sound from the recording stayed in Zola's ears long after the ride home. That night, after she laid Keon in his basket, she sat at the tiny kitchen table in Bronzeville with the phone in her hand. The house was quiet. The fridge hummed. A train passed far away. Zola pressed play again. He drugged me. I didn't want to. I couldn't move. Please, somebody help me. The voice came through the little speaker, broken and scared. It shook like glass about to fall. She didn't think about Aaliyah this time. She just listened. The breath between words, the crack on the word please, the soft way the last me faded out. On the third replay, something inside her locked into place. That's me, she whispered. Her hands went cold. She pressed pause, then play, hoping she was wrong. But the more she listened, the more she heard herself. Her own voice, drowning in fear, rising from a night her mind had tried to bury. I didn't want to. I couldn't move. Zola put the phone down like it was hot metal. She pressed both palms flat on the table and pulled in a shaky breath. Pictures flashed in her head. A glass of wine in the big kitchen, Sterling in the doorway, asking if she liked living there. A heavy feeling in her arms. The hallway tilting. The bed rushing up. A laugh that wasn't hers. So that's what you did, she said into the empty room. You turned my silence into a file and hid it. The next morning she met with Imani at the legal aid office. Keon slept in his stroller, his cheeks still pink from the last fever. It's me on that tape, Zola said. I remember pieces now, not all, but enough. I thought it might be, Imani answered. The person who sent it said it came from the clinic where Aaliyah is. Someone there saved it instead of erasing it. That means someone inside wants him exposed. Can we use it? Zola asked. Yes, Imani said, not alone. But with the DNA report, your medical file, and later a witness from that clinic, it becomes a pattern, not just pain. Zola nodded. Then we keep going, she said. I'm done living like a question mark. Across the city, in a tall glass office, Kofi sat behind his desk, staring at numbers he could not really see. His phone buzzed with a text from a blocked number. The message had one line and one link. You should hear what your father really did. Most days he would have deleted it, but his life already felt broken open. His marriage was ruined. Reporters waited outside his building. His father walked through the mansion like a king above the storm. Kofi clicked the link. He drugged me. I didn't want to. I couldn't move. Please, somebody help me. The voice filled his office. On the first replay he heard fear. On the second, the fear grew a face. It was Zola. He knew that voice. He had heard it when she read stories to kids at the library, when she laughed at bad movies, when she whispered, I love you into his chest. Now the same voice begged for help in a room where no one answered. Now he understood the shadows under her eyes, the nights she woke up shaking, the way she flinched when doors slammed. She had tried to tell him without words. He had refused to see. The glass in his hand slipped and crashed on the floor. Water and shards spread across the carpet. He didn't pick them up. He grabbed his keys and left. He drove up Lakeshore Drive, past the dark water and bright lights, out toward the North Shore where the streets were wide and quiet. The Dumont mansion rose behind its gate like nothing bad could touch it. The gate opened. The staff nodded, but he didn't speak. He walked through the long hallway, lined with family photos and awards, past all the smiling faces, to his father's study. He opened the door without knocking. Sterling stood by the sideboard, pouring whiskey into a glass. His suit was perfect. His hair was smooth and silver. He looked up, annoyed. "You seem to have forgotten how to knock," he said. Kofi shut the door. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed steady. "What did you do to Zola?" he asked. Sterling raised his glass. "Is that how we greet family now?" he said. "Wild questions and hurt feelings?" "I heard a recording," Kofi said. Her voice. She said she was drugged. She said she couldn't move. "It was the night you pushed me onto that out-of-town trip. The great opportunity." Sterling's eyes cooled. "Son, your problem has always been that you feel too much," he said. "You were never built for this life. You get soft. You let little people crawl into your head." "You're not answering me," Kofi said. "Did you go into my room while I was gone? Did you touch my wife when she couldn't fight back?" A muscle jumped in Sterling's jaw. "Don't raise your voice at me," he replied. "I built everything you stand on. And now you want to throw it away over some girl from the South Side who doesn't know her place." Kofi stepped closer, his hands curled into fists. "You raped her," he said. Saying the word made his mouth taste like metal. "You did it in this house, in my bed, and then you watched me call my own child a mistake." Sterling set his glass down and met his eyes. "She was just another lesson," he said quietly. "You needed to learn that you can't trust anyone, not women, not your own judgment. I did what I had to do to harden you. That's what leaders do." Kofi's stomach turned. "You think that's strength?" he asked. "You broke her and hollowed me out just to prove you could. You used my love as a weapon. You made your own choices," Sterling said. "I never told you what to say in that hospital." Kofi reached into his pocket. His phone sat there, recording every word. He had pressed the button before walking in, guided by a feeling he could not name. "My choices changed today," he said. "I'm going to the police, and to the press. You don't get to hide behind this door anymore." Sterling gave a small, sharp laugh. "And you think they'll believe you over me?" he asked. "Do you know how many judges owe me favors? How many reporters built their careers on my stories?" Kofi walked up to the podium. He looked thinner, but there was a new firmness in his face. "My name is Kofi Dumont," he said. "I am here as a son, a husband, and a man who stayed quiet when he should have spoken." He paused. Camera shutters clicked. "For months, my wife, Zola, has been called a liar, and worse," he went on. "She was told her child was not mine. I shouted those words myself. I was wrong." He took a breath. "Today, I want to say clearly that the biological father of my wife's child is my own father, Sterling Dumont. I have a recording of him talking about what he did. I have DNA results that match his blood. What happened to Zola was not a misunderstanding. It was a crime by a man who thought he could never be caught." Noise rolled through the crowd. Reporters shouted questions. Kofi lifted his hand. "For years, people treated my father like he could not be touched," he said. "He gave money to charity and took pictures with leaders. But no donation gives a man the right to hurt women and hide behind his name. I will not carry his secrets anymore." Farther back, Zola stood with Imani. She wore a plain coat and a knitted hat. Keon's head rested on her shoulder. She did not want cameras in her face yet, but she needed to hear the truth spoken in public. When the press conference ended, the district attorney's office announced an official investigation. That afternoon, police cars drove through the black gate at the North Shore mansion. Officers walked Sterling out in handcuffs. Blue lights flashed on his polished shoes. He kept his chin high, trying to stare down the cameras. For the first time, his neighbors saw him in the back of a squad car instead of on a stage. On TV, some people clapped and said, "Finally!" Others called it a witch hunt. Talk shows argued, was this justice or revenge? Had Kofi waited too long? Everyone had an opinion. 72 hours later, Sterling walked out of a side door at the courthouse, free again. A judge, an old friend, said there was not enough direct evidence yet to hold him. The recording had to be checked. The clinic files were protected. The system moved slow, as it often did for powerful men. When Zola saw the news, she did not scream. She turned the volume down so it would not wake Keon. "He's out," she told Imani on the phone. "For now," the lawyer said, "but not like before. His name is dirty now. People are watching. That matters." "It's not enough," Zola said. "He still walks. He still eats good food. He still sleeps without hearing his own name in chains." "Then we keep pushing," Imani replied. "Cases like this don't fall in one hit. They crack piece by piece until the wall comes down." That night, Zola sat at the kitchen table with her phone in front of her. The same phone that had carried her own broken voice back to her. She opened a simple video app and looked at the red record button. "If the system moves slow for men like him," she said softly, "well, move fast with our story." She propped the phone against a mug. She brushed her hair back. She picked up Keon and held him so the camera could see his face. "Hi," she said, her voice gentle but steady. "My name is Zola. This is my son, Keon. Some of you may have seen our names on the news. Today I want you to hear from me what really happened. In plain words, she told the truth. About the mansion. About the night she could not remember. About waking up sore and confused. About the hospital, the shouting, the baby no one wanted to claim. About the DNA report and the recording. About the man who was both father-in-law and unwanted father of her child. "I'm not telling this for drama," she said. "I'm telling it because there are women like me who think they are alone and crazy. We are not crazy. We are not alone. We are just tired of carrying shame that does not belong to us." She did not ask for money. She did not add music. She just held Keon and spoke like she was reading him a story he had a right to hear. "If you're still here listening," she said at the end, "help me make this count. Share this so it reaches someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to see how far one little boy's story can travel." Then she pressed post, took a long breath, and let the phone go. Zola did not expect much from the little video she posted at her kitchen table. She set the phone down and went to wash dishes. Keon slept in his basket with one arm stuck up, like he was reaching for a dream. When she checked her phone an hour later, the screen was full. There were likes, comments, and messages from names she did not know. The view count climbed by the minute. Someone had shared it. Then, someone else. It moved from one feed to another like a small flame catching dry leaves. "I'm watching from Detroit. Dallas here. I believe you, sis. Chicago South Side. You're not alone. New York City. Sending love to you and your baby." Some comments were ugly. They called her a liar, a gold digger, a woman who just wanted attention. But there were more comments that said, "We hear you. That could have been me. Thank you for saying what we could not." One woman wrote, "He gave my uncle a job. Everyone says he's a good man, but my cousin came home from cleaning his office one night and never spoke the same again." Zola held the phone with both hands. Her heart raced, not from fear this time, but from something new. Connection. The next week was a blur. News shows played short clips of her video and then argued about it. Radio stations brought on experts to talk about power and consent. Some defended Sterling, saying people wanted to tear down successful men. Others said this was what happened when rich men thought they were gods. At the legal aid office, the phone rang so much they could barely keep up. Women called from all over Cook County and beyond. Some had worked in the Dumont house as cleaners, nannies, or caterers. Others had worked in companies he controlled. They did not all have details. Some had only a strange memory, a night of dizziness, a blank spot in the timeline of their lives. But their stories had the same shape. A drink, a locked door, a laugh that went cold. Imani wrote everything down. Names, dates, places, patterns. "We are not just fighting for you anymore," she told Zola one night, as they sat surrounded by files. "We are fighting for every woman whose pain he turned into a secret." "Then we need to step out of these walls," Zola said. "If the court moves slow, we move in the street." So they planned a march. They met in a church basement on the south side. The room smelled like old wood and coffee. A group of women sat in a circle, some young, some middle-aged, some with gray hair tucked under hats. We walk downtown, one woman said. We pass the courthouse. We pass the old office building with his name on it. We carry signs, another said. Big letters. No one can pretend they don't see us. We bring our kids, someone else added. So they learn that fear is not the only way to live. They picked a Sunday, when more people were off work. They made flyers with a simple message: no more silence. Justice for Zola. Justice for us all. Zola did not put her face on the flyer. She wanted the day to be bigger than her, even if her story had been the first match. On the morning of the march, the sky over downtown Chicago was bright and cold. Zola put Keon in a soft carrier against her chest, wrapped a scarf around both of them, and took the train with Mrs. Ketta at her side. "You sure you're ready for this?" Ketta asked. "No," Zola said. "But I'm going anyway." They came up from the station and saw people already gathering. Women with homemade signs, men holding kids' hands, students in hoodies, older ladies with canes. A drummer tapped a steady beat on a plastic bucket. Some signs said, "Silence is not consent. Rich does not mean right. Believe black women. Power without mercy is a crime." Zola stayed a few rows back, not in front but not hidden. People turned to look at her, then at Keon, and nodded. Some touched her arm gently as they passed. "You're brave," one woman whispered. "I'm tired," Zola answered. Brave just came with it. They walked from the starting point all the way to Daly Center, where the big steel sculpture watched over the plaza. Their steps echoed between tall buildings. Drivers honked, some in support, some in annoyance. Office workers pressed their faces to the windows above. At the plaza, someone handed Zola a small megaphone. "Say something," they urged. "You don't have to say much." She looked at the crowd, at the faces turned toward her, at Keon's sleepy eyes peeking over the edge of the carrier. "I used to think my story was small," she said into the megaphone. Her voice carried farther than she felt it should. Just one woman in one house. One night, one bed, one mistake that was not mine. She paused. "Then I found out it wasn't just one night, or one house, or one woman," she said. "It was a pattern, a system. It was fear and money and closed doors," the crowd murmured. "Look around you," she said. "You are the proof that this isn't about one family's shame. It's about a world where people like him think they can take and never answer for it. We are here to say, answer." The crowd cheered. Some people wiped their eyes. "Whatever happens in court," Zola added, "we already changed something today. We are not hiding anymore." The march ended, but the story did not. A week later, Keon's breathing changed again. It started with small things. He slept more. He stopped finishing his bottles. He got tired just from holding on to Zola's finger. One night, while Zola was folding laundry on the couch, Keon's body suddenly went stiff. His eyes rolled back. His limbs jerked in short, sharp movements. "Keon!" she shouted. She scooped him up, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. He gasped, then went limp and started to cry weakly. Zola ran out of the house with him in her arms. She shouted for a cab, but none came. She flagged down a neighbor, who drove them in an old car that rattled at every light. At the hospital on the west side, nurses rushed them into a room. Machines beeped. Wires were taped to Keon's tiny chest. A mask covered his face, pushing air into his lungs. Dr. Ahmadi walked in, his eyes tired but focused. "He had been on call since dawn, is having more serious episodes now," he said. "The disorder is attacking his cells faster. We've reached a point where small medicines are not enough. What do we do?" Zola asked. "Tell me what to do." "There is a procedure," he said. "It won't cure him, but it can help his body make better use of energy. It could protect his brain and give him a real chance." "Then do it," Zola said. "Right now." He hesitated. "The hospital requires a deposit to schedule the surgery," he said. $12,000. The rest can be arranged in payments, but they need that to start. I've tried to get them to bend the rules. They won't." Zola stared at him. 12,000? She repeated. "I don't have 1,200. "I know," he said softly. "If it were up to me, we would not be talking about money at all. But I don't control this part." "How long do I have?" she asked. "Hours," he said. "Maybe a day." He's strong, but his body is tired. The longer we wait, the more damage there could be. Zola walked out of the room like someone moving through deep water. She found a quiet corner near a vending machine and sank onto the plastic chair. She called charities. They said they needed forms, boards, time. She called a church. The office said they would pray and pass a basket on Sunday. Sunday felt like 100 years away. She called Imani. "We can apply for emergency help," the lawyer said, "but it won't land in a few hours, not the kind of money they want." "So that's it?" Zola asked. "He just waits?" There was a long silence. "You have more power than you did last year," Imani said quietly. "You have a story people already know. You have their attention. Use it." Zola looked at the bright hospital lights. She thought of the march, the signs, the women who had told her, "You're not alone." She thought of the video that had traveled farther than her own feet ever had. "You want me to ask for money?" she said. The word tasted strange. She had lived her whole life without asking for more than a little credit at the corner store. "I want you to tell the truth again," Imani answered. "Let people decide what to do with it." Zola hung up. She wiped her face with both hands, stood up, and walked to the small family waiting room. There was a long table, some chairs, a window that showed nothing but gray sky. She set her phone on the table and hit record. "Hi," she said. Her voice was rough, but steady. "It's me again. Some of you might remember my face from the video about my son's father." She took a breath. "Today I'm not here to talk about that man," she said. "Today I'm here about my son Keon." She turned the camera slightly so it caught the hallway behind her, the nurses rushing by, the hospital smell you could almost feel through the screen. "He has a rare disease," she said. "His cells don't make energy right. The doctors say there's a surgery that can help. They also say they won't do it until I put $12,000 on a desk." She let the words sit. "I don't have $12,000, she went on. "Some days I don't have 20. I'm a cleaning lady from Bronzeville who used to work at a library. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm asking you to hear this. A little boy's chance to live better is being held next to a number in a bank account." Tears pushed at the back of her eyes. She blinked them away. "If all you can give is a prayer, I'll take it," she said. "If you can share this, do it. If you sent me a message before saying you believed me, I believe you too. I believe we can move something here. Not for me, for him." She pointed the camera toward the door of Keon's room. "My baby was born in a room full of shame that wasn't his," she said. "I want him to grow up in a world full of strangers who chose to care." She stopped recording and sent the video to the same account she had used before. She added one line at the bottom. "A friend set up a fund for Keon's surgery. The link is in the description." No pressure, just truth. Then she put the phone down and went back to sit by her son. The internet moved faster than the hospital. Within an hour, the video began to spread. People who had already shared her first story now shared this one. Others who had never heard her name before stopped scrolling when they saw a tired mother in a hospital waiting room speaking straight into their screens. "This is the same woman who called out that rich guy," someone posted. "Now her baby needs surgery and the hospital wants cash. Come on, y'all." $5 came in, then 10, then 20. A teacher wrote, "I'm retired now, but I taught in Bronzeville for 30 years. I've seen too many kids lose their chance. Here's a little something. A bus driver sent $10 and a note for gas to get him to school one day." A woman from Atlanta wrote, "I don't have kids, but I survived something like you. Let's help your boy." She sent 50. The numbers on the fund page climbed. Hundreds, then thousands. In another part of the city, Kofi watched the video alone in his apartment. The walls felt close. His father was out on bail. Reporters hounded him every time he stepped outside. His family name, once a key, had become a chain. When Zola's face appeared on his screen, holding back tears but still speaking plain, he felt his chest squeeze. He watched until the end. The part about $12,000 hung in the air. He opened a folder on his computer and clicked through his own accounts. There were investments, savings, and a stake in a small tech company he had helped start years ago. He called his partner. "I need to sell my part," he said. "Now?" his partner asked. "The price is good, but are you sure? You helped build this." "I'm sure," Kofi said. "Some things matter more than profit." By the next day, after papers and screens and signatures, the money appeared in his bank. He called the hospital billing office. "I want to make a payment on behalf of a patient," he said. "His name is Keon, Ani." Quietly, No announcement, no plaque, just mark the surgery deposit as paid. Sir, that's a large amount, the woman on the phone said. Do you want a record with your name for tax? No, he cut in. Write it down however you have to. Private donor. Former fool. I don't care. Just don't let that boy wait because of me. He hung up before she could ask more questions. Back at the hospital, Zola sat half asleep in the plastic chair by Keon's bed. A nurse came in and gently touched her shoulder. Miss. Ani, the nurse said. The billing office just called up. They said the deposit has been met. You're cleared for surgery. Zola blinked. What? People gave, the nurse said. A lot of people. And one person gave a lot. Who? Zola asked. They wouldn't say, the nurse answered. They just said, tell the mother the door is open now. Zola looked at Keon. At the tubes and wires. At his small hand lying still on the blanket. The door is open, she repeated softly. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. You hear that, baby? She whispered. Strangers and someone who finally woke up just pushed a door open for you. For the first time in a long time, hope didn't feel like a cruel joke. It felt like a hallway at the end of which there was light. Outside, the city kept moving. People went to work, cooked dinner, watched shows. Some had no idea a little boy on the west side now had a chance because they had clicked a button. But in that one room, with the machines humming and the monitors blinking, the fight against one cruel man turned into a fight for one child's future. And that fight was about to change everything that came next. Keon went into surgery early the next morning. The lights in the hallway buzzed. The air smelled like metal and soap. Zola sat in a plastic chair while the doors to the operating room closed on her baby. She folded her hands so tight her knuckles turned white. She did not pray for big promises. She prayed for small things, for steady hands, for clean tools, for one more day with her son. Hours moved slow. Nurses walked past in soft shoes. An old TV in the corner mumbled about the Dumont scandal. Zola did not look up. All her thoughts were in that bright room where she could not go. At last, Dr. Amati stepped into the hallway. His mask hung at his neck. There were lines under his eyes, but his voice was calm. The surgery went well, he said. He will need care and more treatment, but right now, your son is still with us. His brain scans look better than we hoped. Zola stood up so fast the chair slid back. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up on him. I did my job, the doctor said. You did the hard part. You kept fighting. For the first time in a long time, Zola let herself breathe all the way in. She walked into the recovery room and saw Keon lying there, tiny and wired but alive. His chest rose and fell in a slow, even rhythm. She touched his hand. We are still here, she told him, and we are not doing this alone anymore. While Keon slept and healed, the other battle moved forward. Sterling's lawyers worked day and night. They tried to push the case into quiet corners. They claimed the recording was fake. They said the women were confused, greedy, or ill. They called the clinic notes private. They tried to block the DNA report. Some of it worked, at least for a while. Papers went missing. Dates were pushed back. A judge suddenly stepped down from the case because of an old friendship. Another judge took his place. Sterling walked in and out of court with his head high. Each time, reporters shouted questions. He answered with silence or smooth half-smiles. His lawyer told the cameras, "My client has faith in the system." In private, Sterling watched the walls close in. More women came forward. Aaliyah, with help from a brave nurse, gave a short video statement that played on the news. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. She spoke about being sent to the clinic, about pills that made the world foggy, about a man who told her no one would ever believe her. It was harder to call all of them liars when their stories lined up like bricks. One night, sitting alone in his study, Sterling made a new choice. If the system would not protect him, money still could. He called a man who owed him favors. He asked about passports, private planes, and countries that did not like to share. "Leave fast," the man said. "Before they lock down your travel." Sterling packed only what mattered to him: passports, cash, watches, and a drive full of secrets. He put on a dark coat and a simple cap. No driver, no car, with plates everyone knew. He slipped out the back gate and into a hired sedan. But Kofi's private investigator had been watching. A quiet man in a beat-up car followed the sedan from the North Shore toward the airport. He called Kofi, Who called Imani? Who called the detective on the case? Phones buzzed in hands all over the city. Zola was at the hospital when the call came. They think he is heading to O'Hare, Imani said. He has fake papers. They may let him through before the judge can file anything. Zola looked at Keon's sleeping face. The machines hummed around them. "I'm coming," she said. "You don't have to," the lawyer answered. "The police can handle this." "I know," Zola said, "but I need to see it with my own eyes." She kissed Keon's forehead and asked a nurse to watch him. Then she grabbed her coat and hurried down to the street. A friend of Ketta's drove her toward the airport, weaving through late traffic on the expressway. O'Hare was busy, even at night. Suitcases rolled. Voices echoed. Planes roared away into the dark. Sterling moved through the first-class line with his shoulders set. He held a passport with another name and a boarding pass to a far country. His bodyguards walked behind him, forming a small human wall. He was almost to the checkpoint when a voice called his real name, Sterling Dumont. He turned. 2 officers stood there with a plainclothes detective and a woman from the district attorney's office. Behind them, cameras from 3 news stations were already rolling. "Mr. Dumont," the detective said, holding up a paper, "you are under arrest for attempted flight, document fraud, and violation of your release terms, in addition to the charges already filed against you." Sterling's mouth tightened. "This is a mistake," he said. Your lawyer can meet you downtown," the detective said. The officers took his arms. His bodyguards stepped back. They were paid well, but not enough to get in front of handcuffs. As they turned him toward the exit, Sterling saw Zola standing near a pillar by the windows. She wore a plain coat, and her hair was tied back. Her hands were empty. She did not hide. She did not step forward either. She just looked at him. "You," he said, his voice flat. "You did this to yourself," she answered. "I only stopped pretending not to see." For the first time, his eyes flickered, just a little. "You think you've won," he said. "No," Zola replied. "I think I have started. The rest is up to the truth." Reporters pushed closer. Travelers stared, some lifting their phones to record. In a world full of flight boards and coffee stands, a man who thought he owned cities was walked out like any other suspect. The trial that followed was long and loud. Zola took the stand and told her story in simple words. She did not dress it up. She did not soften it. She said, "I was drugged. I could not move. I woke up sore and ashamed and told myself I must have done something wrong. I know now that I did nothing wrong." Aaliyah sat in the witness chair, hands shaking, and spoke about bruises and locked doors and a car ride to the clinic that never ended. Doctors explained the DNA tests. Nurses talked about strange orders. A tech expert played the recording of Sterling's own voice from Kofa's phone, captured in the quiet study where he thought no one would hear. The defense tried to poke holes, but too many pieces fit. When the jury came back, the room was packed. Zola sat in the second row, holding a small toy car that Keon had pressed into her hand that morning for good luck. The foreman stood. "We find the defendant, Sterling Dumont, guilty on all major counts," he said. The judge's voice was firm. "Given the seriousness of these crimes, the pattern of abuse, and the attempt to flee, this court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole." Sterling did not shout. He did not beg. He simply stared ahead, as if the world had finally done something rude to him. Zola closed her eyes. She did not feel joy. She felt something quieter, a weight shifting, a door closing. Outside the courthouse, people cheered. Some cried. Some just stood, holding each other. The news called it the end of an era. For Zola, it was not an end. It was a line. On one side stood the years of silence and blame. On the other side, something new waited, still unnamed, but hers. She went back to the hospital that evening. Keon was awake, watching cartoons, a small smile on his face. "How did it go, Mama?" he asked in his little voice. Zola sat on the edge of his bed and smoothed his hair. "The truth finally spoke loud enough," she said. "And someone who hurt a lot of people can't hurt them anymore." Keon nodded, not understanding all the details, but feeling the lightness in the room. "Can we go home soon?" he asked. "Soon," she said. "But when we do, we won't be the same people who walked in." She looked out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, women were hearing the news and standing a little taller. The story was not over. But for the first time, it did not belong to fear. Spring came back to Chicago the year the noise finally started to fade. Snow on the sidewalks melted into little rivers. Tiny green leaves showed up on the trees outside Zola's building, like the city was trying again. Keon came home from the hospital with a scar on his side and a list of medicines longer than his arm. He had to go to checkups every month. Some days he got tired just climbing the stairs, but he smiled, he asked questions, and he liked to press his ear to Zola's chest to hear the drum inside. Zola watched him like someone watches the sky after a storm. She did not trust it yet, but she woke up grateful every time she saw him breathing steady. One afternoon, she walked back into the Bronzeville library where she used to work. The staff hugged her and slipped a paper cup of tea onto her table. Keon sat beside her with a stack of picture books. On the table was a thick notebook. Inside were the things she had tried not to remember: the mansion, the foggy night, the hospital birth, the DNA report, the march, the trial, the surgery. She wrote them down in plain words, like she was talking to one honest friend. On the first page, she had written a title, The Son of Silence. A small black-owned press on the west side agreed to publish it. Instead, it slipped out into the world like a seed on the wind. Book clubs read it. Church mothers passed it around with tissues. With the small money from the book and the leftover donations from Keon's fund, Zola rented a tiny storefront a few blocks from the courthouse. She painted the walls soft yellow and put a second-hand rug on the floor. On the front window, she taped simple words: Keon Center, free help for women facing abuse and power. Just 3 rooms, a front space with old couches and a big coffee pot, a quiet room where people could cry or sit without talking, and a little office where volunteers helped fill out forms or call hotlines. Women came. Some walked in bold, some slipped in like shadows, others sat 3 visits in silence before saying a word. They were teachers, cleaners, cashiers, nurses, grandmothers. They were tired of being afraid. Sometimes Aaliyah sat at the front desk, folding pamphlets with careful hands. Some days her voice shook. "You are not crazy," she would tell new visitors. "He just taught you to doubt yourself. We are going to unteach that." Kofi helped from the side. He met with donors, filled in grant applications, and drove women to court when their rides fell through. He never asked Zola to forgive him with words. He kept showing up for Keon and for the work, even when cameras were gone. On Sundays, when the center was closed, Zola and Keon took the bus to the lake. They walked the path and counted boats. Keon's steps were still a little careful, but they were his. One soft afternoon when he was 6, he looked up at her. "Mama," he asked, "am I the boy from the bad story?" Zola knelt so their eyes were level. "You are the boy from a lot of stories," she said. "Some people will remember the pain that brought you here. I remember the way you kick in your sleep and how you dance when nobody's watching. You are not what someone did to us. You are what we build after." Keon thought about that, then pointed at the water. "Then I want to build big waves," he said. "You already did," she answered. "You just can't see all of them from here." Years later, people would still call, still write, still show up at Keon Center. Some came because of the court case. Some came because of the book. Many came because a friend whispered, "They will believe you there." Zola could not fix every story. Some days she sat in the quiet room after closing, head in her hands, heart heavy from so much hurt. On those nights she would peek into Keon's room at home. He would be asleep with a comic book on his chest and a nightlight on, breathing in and out, in and out. "That's why we keep going," she would tell herself. "Not because the world is fair now, but because he deserves a better one." One evening, Zola sat at her small kitchen table with her phone propped up on a mug. The dishes were done, the city hummed outside, and Keon was in the next room building a city from plastic blocks. She looked into the camera, not as a victim anymore, but as a woman who had walked through fire and was still standing. "If you stayed with me to the end of this story," she said gently, "thank you deeply. Listening through is its own kind of courage." She smiled, the tired kind but real. "If this story touched something in you," she continued, "go ahead and hit subscribe so you can travel with me into the next one. If you're not quite sure how you feel yet, drop a comment and tell me what line stayed in your mind. And if you made it this far and still don't really like our video, tap the like button anyway so we can learn, grow, and shape the next stories to fit your heart better." She reached forward, ready to end the recording. "Thank you for giving me your time today," she finished. "Now look at the screen, choose another story, and keep walking with us a little longer."